Hi, Tiffany. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. And yourself, Evie?
Good, thank you. Now, thanks for joining me today. I'm really excited for you to be doing your first placement here at St. Mary's. Now, I'm not sure if you already know, but our school is actually a very high needs school, which means that the teaching has to be modified according to the specific needs of our students. Now, just out of curiosity, I was wondering if you could perhaps explain to me what you think disability means.
Well, I read before coming here that disability is a continuing condition that restricts everyday activities. It may be an attribute to an intellectual, psychiatric, cognitive, neurological, sensory, or physical impairment, or a combination of those impairments.
Wow, that's fantastic. I'm really impressed that you did some research before coming here. Now, from many years of teaching, I've seen that there's a variety of students and their learning abilities. They're all different, and so we have to then cater for those specific needs individually. Do you know why it's so important to try and cater to our students' learning needs?
By catering to various learning needs, you would be creating a positive environment that fosters curiosity, engagement, and a willingness to learn. I believe to be able to understand the different learning abilities and needs of students, teachers must get to know their students. I feel that establishing positive relationships and maintaining constant communication is the key to this.
That's fantastic, Tiffany. I'd love to be your mentor and help you with this process. After all, I am here to guide you and support you through this experience. You seem to already know quite a lot about disability already, which is fantastic. But let me further your understanding specifically in terms of how to use literature to cater for the learning needs of our students. So I've got four books that I'd like to focus on today. So these slides basically address disability through literature. So if we go to our next slide, I've just got a quote here from the Australian curriculum. So English highlights the importance of using multimodal texts in our classroom to allow children to connect with and appreciate literature. Picture books provide students with opportunities to interpret and evaluate texts and then to be able to create their own multimodal texts. So that sort of gives quite a good introduction, I feel, to what we're about to talk about. This is our first book that we have in our most of our classrooms across this school. It's called Don't Call Me Special. Most of the books in this, actually every book in this presentation is appropriate for stage 1. So the theme in this book looks at equality and equity. This book helps students to understand that there are a variety of disabilities. Some students believe that it's just physical because that's all they can actually see. It's more important for students to view that there is a variety that may be intellectual, physical, or even emotional. These books interact with students' questions to identify the isolated individual and questions that allow students to think upon their own knowledge. It also looks at the work special and unique and that they are more than that. They should not be treated any less different. So that's quite popular. This book is called The Perfect Project. It's also appropriate for stage 1. And there are a few activities in this book which I find really engaging and appropriate for our students. It celebrates the positive traits associated with a range of common SEN, so special education needs, conditions, boosting the confidence and strength awareness of children with those conditions, while also allowing for a better understanding and positivity among their peers. The book includes a page of discussion points about autism, a page of tips for how to boost abilities, inclusive of children with and without special educational needs, and finally, a page of notes for parents and teachers. This book features a dyslexic-friendly font to encourage accessibility and inclusivity for all readers. There are also notes on how to cope with autism. So it's more than just a book in this sense. So there's a lot of tips for parents and teachers, which I find excellent. My Friend Suhana by Shayla Abdullah. So Suhana is a child with cerebral palsy who does things differently. She does not talk, she does not walk, and she cannot have play dates with the other children. It explores inclusion, friendship, and acceptance from a child's perspective, showing that children hold no judgments and contributes to the understanding that a child's view of the world is very innocent and simple. Our kids love this book. The pictures are wonderful, and it's just so good to see the story from another child's perspective. And finally, Ruby Finds a Worry. So this book explores the concept of anxiety, which can be a debilitating mental health issue that can be hard to notice from an outsider's perspective and sometimes ignored by the individual suffering from it. This notion is depicted, however, in a very engaging and visual way, where the protagonist, Ruby, has a worry that grows in physical size and follows her the more she ignores it. The personified worry, so it's got human attributes, gives students a better understanding of what may be going on in their minds or others' minds by the physical, almost human attributes the worry has. Now, I'm not sure if you've heard of the Australian curriculum or the early years learning framework, but that's where how we base our, that's where everything sort of comes from within our English key learning area. So connecting to the Australian curriculum and the early years learning framework. All of the picture books are appropriate for stage 1, but they could easily be integrated into kindergarten or stage 2 work. Within the literature substrand, students are required to respond to, examine, and create literature. And you can see I've taken these points from the Australian curriculum, and I've highlighted in bold where it actually links to our responding, examining, and creating. Let's move on. So this is our early years learning framework. I'm not sure if you can see that image very clearly, sorry about that. The guiding principles of the early years learning framework highlight the importance of valuing and respecting the differing family structures, cultures, contexts, and values of the children and families within the early childhood setting. So I looked through the document, and I found that outcome 1 really links to our school sort of lifestyle and dynamic in terms of identity, and this bottom dot point about social inclusion. Let's go on to our next slide. I'll also give you a copy of this slide so you get to read it after as well. Now, there are 3 impulses that guide children's response to literature. We first have the hermeneutic impulse, which is the desire to know, basically. The second one is the personal impulse, or the need to connect to one's own life. And the third one is the aesthetic impulse, where children can experience the story as if they were there. So we've sort of worked out that these 3 impulses contribute to the way children read, interpret, and understand picture books, basically. And this brings me onto this slide here, where all experiences and differences should be recognised and valued. So you might be aware that there are a lot of picture books out there that don't really address sort of everyone. It's very specific. Some books might not involve women doing certain roles and things like that. So if we don't recognise different experiences and differences, it leads to stereotypes and attitudes which may carry over into adulthood. It leads to discrimination and limiting views of perspective. It leads to a lack of inclusion and acceptance. We find that well-being is negatively impacted, and our children may view themselves as different or incompetent, which we really don't want. Everyone, as you sort of understood from those picture books, everyone is valued and included at our school, and we really want to represent that through literature. Sorry, I was talking for a long time then. I hope that's okay with you. I'll go back. I'm not sure how to exit. Here we go. Okay. So I hope that helps, but to aid your understanding even further, I would want you to look at each of those texts, so I will send that Google slide presentation to you, and find some language and visual resources that have been used that you will think help communicate meaning in relation to disability. For when we might meet again next week, and we can go over that. I will then introduce you to the 4 roles of a reader, which is a theory I use all the time to promote critical thinking and discussion. What do you think about that?
That sounds amazing. I'm very excited to read through those books and gain my own understanding.
Hi, Tiffany. Welcome back. How are you?
Hi, Evie. I'm good. And yourself?
Not bad at all. How did you go after reading the books?
It was good. I learned a lot, and the pictures definitely did help. Yeah, it was great. They were definitely good books.
Awesome. So did you manage to collect any language and visual features of those books?
Yeah, I'll just share my screen with you. So I did like 3 dot points, 3 or 4 in each. So the Don't Call Me Special book. So there were rhetorical questions like, how could you tell which ones? Because there was an image of all different students, and the question was like, oh, who's the disabled student or student with a disability in this image? And then it goes into the next page, and it's like, oh, you were right. Most people would have guessed so and so. There was the image comparison of a special school for students with disabilities to incorporating the students to mainstream schools. So back in the day, they were in in special schools with special teachers, but now they want to make it more mainstream so that everyone's included, which is great. And this book helps with showing that disability, students with disabilities won't be excluded. So just as it says the next dot point, it shows what equality and diversity looks like by including everyone. The Perfect Project is a good example of a boy who has autism. So there are dialogues between the characters to enable the audience to feel a part of the classroom as well. The conversation between the teacher, the class, and Chris, who is the student with autism. The classroom displays a positive and inviting classroom that enables collaboration because of its colours and the layout of the tables as well as your typical, like, you know, 4 tables in almost in like a circle, so that students can work well together. There's the use of onomatopoeia because Chris likes playing with trains, so he's like choo choo, which is really good and really cute. My friend Suhana has cerebral palsy, and it's really good to see because the narrator's friend and is recounting her experience with her, so it's pretty cute. So it's not just her going by herself. The use of colors to represent her emotions, so like some colors students aren't quite aware of, even like the clear ones, like red is for angry to show that kind of emotion, and yellow is for happy. So those were just signs that they used within the book to let students know and what the teachers can connect the students' feelings to. Simile is also used, so all the stars are like all the people around her who love her, so it's so clear to see that like is the simile in there. Ruby Finds Worry is the other book that I looked at as well through your suggestion. Ruby's worry is a personalized being. It grows, has eyes, and follows her everywhere. So this was really interesting for students, which they'll be quite excited about. There's a contrast of colour between Ruby and her vibrant worry in comparison to dull black and white backgrounds. The typography,
Yeah.
certain words are capitalized and written in different fonts to heighten the emotions and the expressions in the book. So I hope that these dot points were okay with you, but I really did enjoy the stories.
I actually love how much effort you've put into that. That's fantastic. I'm really impressed. I feel like you already have quite a good understanding of the features of a text, which is really impressive. Obviously, it's just that area of disability that you're probably not familiar with at the current time, which is completely understandable. Once you arrive next week for your induction, you'll observe me probably reading one of the books to the class, which I then always follow up with questions to sort of draw out discussion. Now, I use this form of questioning in alignment with the 4 roles of a reader model, which I'm not sure if you've heard of before, you might have at uni, which I said that last week I would tell you more about. So it's a framework designed for effective reading practices, which focus on cultural and community knowledge. So I might just pop up those slides again. So this is our 4 roles of a reader model. We start off with our code breaking. So this is a question that I would ask in relation to the book that I got you to read aloud also, which we'll go through in a second. I'm really looking forward to hearing that. So do the pictures match with what the text is telling us? And depending on how the student answer, you'd still want to ask them how. So give that sort of an explanation behind that. The text participant, how does this book connect to my life and past experiences? You've also got text analysis. So why do you think the author chose to write this book? So what were their reasonings and how was their sort of method about writing the book? Text user, is this book an imaginative or informative text? So what makes you think so? This links to sort of the features of a text that they then have to look at. So if it's involving factual information, they'll associate that with an informative text, and sort of vice versa for the imaginative texts. Just in association with that, I found this really good document here that sort of connects the 4 roles of a reader to the syllabus. So objective A, communicate through speaking, listening, reading, writing, viewing, and representing, which is from that outcome that you see there. A student demonstrates developing skills and strategies to read, view, and comprehend short, predictable texts on familiar topics in different media and technologies. And objective B, use language to shape and make meaning according to purpose, audience, and context. which can be found in that outcome there. You can just type those outcomes into Google and they will literally come up for you. And that is, a student demonstrates emerging skills and knowledge of texts to read, view, and shows developing awareness of purpose, audience, and subject matter. Now, these need to be considered together if our students are to develop their skills of inference. And I feel like that sums it up very well. Now, back over to you with your awesome clip that you sent me. So we spoke about reading with expression after going through those 4 books earlier, and how important it is to sort of get that engagement level up. So let's have a look at that.
Sometimes when we see people who are different from us, we assume things about them that are not always true. When you assume, you are just making a guess. Assuming things about people can hurt their feelings and make them feel very left out. Everybody in the world is unique. That means that each one of us is a little different from everyone else. We each have things that we can do easily and things that we find hard and need help with. What about you? Do you know any children with a disability in your school, in your family? What things are they good at? What do they find difficult? What are you good at? What do you find difficult?
From doing that read aloud and also from the 4 roles of a reader model, if you could think of any activities or strategies associated, it might be with that specific book that we just heard, or it can be with the others, strategies that you may implement after reading one of them.
I've been thinking of implementing the activities of writing a letter of how they would feel if someone had said to them that they weren't welcome, because this allows students to feel empathy for others when they are not involving everyone. It also enables students to think of others as well as themselves. I was also thinking that each child or each student could get a strip of paper and they write how they can be inclusive, or what does harmony or equity look like to them, drawing pictures around it, and then we would staple it together. So this activity would show unity and harmony of everyone working together, because the students can sit anywhere within the classroom to get an idea of how their common goal of what harmony looks like. Hanging the connected paper together in the classroom provides a reminder for the students to always show this unity and harmony for one another, so that it's always there throughout the year.
That's awesome. I really love your creativity there. That's fantastic. I just thought I'd mention quickly that with the activities, we can also differentiate them. Obviously, there'll be some kids who will love to write a letter, but we can do sing songs, we can make up dances. So that is catering to other learning needs as well. But that's fantastic. I really can't wait to meet you. Alrighty, as well. I'll see you then.
I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye, Evie.